I've contended before that there's more to the concept of law than the Mosaic law. Certainly, we're not under the Mosaic law today in any way. Hopefully you can see that. But I also think that the Mosaic law was a physical representation of a larger thing that happens in the minds of humans. The Mosaic law is a representation of the knowledge of good and evil, one that hopefully brought to light its working in people, that is, what effect that mindset has on people and what it results in. It doesn't bring righteousness, and it results in death. Many people have a logic and mindset that seems to come naturally, that makes them think it will make them righteous in some way and benefit them, but it's actually the opposite. I think, at least in part, the Mosaic law was to get people to see this for themselves, so they can come to the conclusion that faith in God is a better mindset, the only mindset that can give them life. Please also understand that in talking about the symbolism, I'm not saying the physical things didn't happen, or that they were made-up stories to make a symbolic point. No, it all physically happened. And also, there are things we can learn from that. Things that God was trying to teach people, and is still trying to teach people today. It's one way God communicates with man, I believe, to get us to understand these spiritual concepts through our own experiences. The Mosaic law came a few hundred years after Abraham. Abraham was never under the Mosaic law, yet he was righteous by faith alone. He believed God's promise, and it seemed to take a long time. He tried through his own carnal means, his own fleshly power to make it happen, through adultery with Hagar, and God still called him righteous. According to the later to come Mosaic law, Abraham would have sinned, and under many people's moral laws that they live by today, he would have sinned, but he was righteous by faith alone. Not only that, but we might look at his carnal actions and see them as a lack of faith. If Abraham believed God and had faith, why did he struggle to bring about God's promise himself, instead of just trusting God? Yet through all that, God still called him righteous, and not only that, but God said Abraham did not waver in unbelief at God's promise. Sometimes we too, who have faith in God's promises, have struggled to make the work of God happen in us through our own fleshly struggle, similar to Abraham. And later, we might think we've failed in faith. But yet God still calls us righteous because we've put our faith in Jesus and doesn't hold it against us. He's still fighting for us, and he will still complete the work he began in us. Of course, there were natural consequences to Abraham working in his flesh, but it wasn't punishment from God. God was still with him through all that, and God didn't hold it against him. Just as God is with us through whatever condition or situation we find ourselves in today. Today, we might look at people who have put their faith in Jesus, yet struggle in their flesh instead of finding rest in Christ, and some may think they just must not be saved. If they were saved, why does it appear by their actions and words that they are living apart from faith? Jesus knows exactly who belongs to him, and if they've ever put their faith in Jesus alone, then they belong to him, and we can also trust God will complete the work he began in them. When we see him, we will be like him. My prayer for them is that God will minister the peace of Christ to their minds, so that they may cease from their own labors, rather knowing that God works in them, to be established in faith, and to be encouraged to live their life today by the faith of Jesus, who is with them today and will never leave them. Galatians 2:20. I am crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me.